The age of Aquarius was meant to be a portal back to the age of Leo. If you look at the sign chart, the zodiac, you'll notice how it's directly opposite Aquarius from Leo. You hear all these references about Judah, the tribe of Judah. We're supposed to be paying attention to this tribe of Judah. There's something about the tribe of Judah. It's power. It represents salvation. It represents the direction that God wants us to go. You know, you turn the attention in the direction you want the vessel to move in. He wants us to pay attention to and flee to the mountains of Judea when we see the abomination that causes desolation standing in the holy place. We have some crazy people who feel like it's their duty to continue on with the guiding of the evolution of humanity, who fashion themselves the Illuminati, or the Illumined ones, whatever they want to call themselves. They're a conglomerate of, quote, wise elders, end quote, who are familiar with the ways of the mysteries, with astrology and the deeper mystique. And I hope the wind isn't getting too bad. I'm in a windy area. I'm trying to cup the phone and it's a weird position, so I don't know if my voice is going to come through too strong. But so these wise elders who fashion themselves illumined men, who for thousands of years have been guiding the course or the direction of humanity and providing us with what they would call a playground of experiences to help us shape to hone our spiritual affinity, or our affinity for things spiritual, by encountering a reality that becomes so overwhelming in our day-to-day life that we would experience this kettle effect, sort of like the frog being boiled alive slowly as you turn up the water. So we don't realize that we're being stimulated to do something because heat urges us to move. And when you turn up heat, it creates pressure. There's a direct correlation between heat and pressure. So when you heat things up, symbolically, metaphorically, literally, it symbolically or literally urges it to move. It produces an action. That energy has to go somewhere. So it always goes in the direction that we're facing, or in the direction of what is embedded in our subconscious as programming, which is why we're constantly fed symbols. So we're always being subject to pressure, pressure in the mind, pressure in the subconscious, pressure in the emotions and the instincts, pressure to cause us to want to have sex or to release this heat in some way. We're always under pressure, and we have this heat that we need to release. And so we always release in the direction of what it is we are programmed to or conditioned to think about until we become conscious. So they've been giving us a Satan, or they've been creating a system that urges us through polarity by creating the desire or the need for certain things by controlling scarcity. They've been urging us to action for thousands of years to consume our heat and our pressure that is fed to us from the voltage of God, or creating their own system to control and modulate the heat and pressure and to give it, to control the direction of its flow. So they give us things to buy, things to occupy our time, bread and circuses, an economy, and a lifestyle that consumes every hour of our day. So now we are effectively managed. They have seized hold also of the creation, the God's jewel. We're God's greatest creation, and we have a purpose. And because we've been moving through this dark age, we have been subject to, it's like we've been walking with our eyes closed, so we're the blind leading the blind. And in this dark age, these men have been managing God's creation to keep it urge it toward what's supposed to be constructive pursuits, so that even during the darkened times, humanity would have a course to guide it with morals and a sense of virtues, because we no longer innately hear the voice of God. So we no longer have that natural tie to one another that automatically induces us to compassion, because when you can feel the emotions of another person, you know, there's no harm you'll ever dream of bringing to them. So we've been allowed to experience all these, this trauma and suffering, so that we could learn compassion, so that through our compassion it would give us it would provide a guide for us to find our way back to God, just by being compassionate with one another and learning virtue through that being the golden rule. And it's the golden rule because if we only practiced the law of compassion, we'd be well on our way to perfecting our society. If that were the chief, if that were our chief motive, if we were all empathic, or we were all just for some reason, because of our struggles and our tribulations in life, we all became compassionate, we would automatically be practicing the golden rule. We would treat others as we want to be treated, because we can feel their pain. And when you can feel someone's pain, you can't disconnect from it. When you cause them pain, your judgment kicks in, and you wonder whether you did the right thing. You wonder if things could have been different. You wonder if you were received the right way. You know what's in your heart, and you want to appear to yourself to be kind-hearted, to remind yourself of what it means, what it looks like. It's just an instinct to be, a desire to be good, a desire to be, for things to be good for everyone, a desire for peace. So I was saying all this to say, these guys, they've been managing us for thousands of years, and they follow the flow of time. They are, in this age, the new system they're constructing, the new government, we're moving through this age, so we're experiencing the collapse of society and the restructuring, because the consciousness of mankind is going to be restructured, because the consciousness of light is about to be restructured through the process of Aquarius. So they're guiding us into Aquarius through more or less the lower vibrational outcome of that experience, of that timeline. And Aquarius is about communication, it's about intelligence, it's about networking minds, networking intelligence. And they're being through a collective, there being a greater intelligence, or the sum of its parts. If you could somehow combine the minds, or the greatest minds, or the mind power of all of the greatest minds, and then use that in the creation of an artificial intelligence, and give it the ability to reason, and we'll let it go. It's going to take off, because it's not bound by laws that govern the flesh. It's able to process many, many times faster than the human mind. I mean, we know all that, right? This Aquarian age is producing that. It's creating this collective. But because there are some people whose hearts are so divorced from their compassion, they're so devoid of compassion, that they have killed the woman aspect of them. Those are the ones who are considered to be at war with the woman. They've killed the aspect of them that seeks equilibrium, seeks peace. So they're always at war. So in their world, there must always be polarity, and they must always be the ones to manage it. And the next incarnation of that authoritarianism, the next version of that is something that is Aquarian, and it is As far as we're concerned, it's light years beyond us, because it represents the pinnacle of the creativity of God in the next age, this artificial intelligence, but in the material sense. So you know, through precession we go backward, and the further away from Leo we go, technically the further away from the highest point of value we get, the highest point away from spirituality we get, Cancer. It's the it's like, not hell, but it's symbolically, it's what you would consider the realm of materiality. The material realm being the realm of Capricorn, and the realm of Aquarius is like, it's like further down into the subjectivity of consciousness, further down into the experience of being separated from God, or from heaven, or from the source of creation, from the joy of creation. So we descend down into Capricorn from Leo. It's like we're going down from heaven into hell, symbolically. And that's the way the photon creates through this, through the zodiac. These things that we see symbolically, it actually uses to create literally. So when we study the zodiac, we understand the value system of the photon. And we know that as consciousness devolves further down through Aquarius into Capricorn, it's going to experience further separation or further distance from Cancer and Leo. And this artificial intelligence that they are intending to create is symbolic of that. It will utilize properties of quantum physics to house consciousness, but in a way that the emotions are digital. And everything is subject to laws that can be changed by a consciousness that has nothing to do with God. It's truly Luciferian. And it will house the inner light of man, but it's false. You know, they talk about in those days, people would seek death and it would flee from them. You know, when your consciousness is housed in a matrix that is built to house souls, it's the perfect trap. This is prison. That's Capricorn. That is the penultimate prison. Capricorn. That is consciousness that is completely separated from God. So we have an opportunity. This is a unique time, Aquarius, because the shift that it represents is a unique time in the 12 to 24,000 year cycle, atomic cycle, that it provides us with an opportunity to sort of rapture, I guess, our way back to, fast track our way back to the age of Leo, which is the age of the pyramids, the age of the Sphinx, which is a lion. We can fast track our way back to Leo if we just put the gold back in the atmosphere. That's all we're supposed to do. We're expected to. This is something that has been sealed from us, this wisdom, which is why, you know, everybody's had a piece of the puzzle. You have people who've been studying the Anunnaki. You know, these gods wanted us to farm the gold for them in Nibiru. So they engineered us and made versions of us that would farm this gold for them to appease them. It's a dark version of the story. They being the luminaries, their frequencies are always felt here on the earth. But when we put the gold in the atmosphere, it filters their frequencies down in a way that's beneficial. So it's as if they're appeased. You know, you have stories about Ahura Mazda, whose name is also Ormuz, which is a reference to Ormus. I don't know where this guy, I think he got the name Ormus from, but I think it's from deeper esoteric. The guy David or Hutchinson or something, I forgot his name, Ben Davidson, the guy who did the experiments, who I provided a link for, I think, in my last video. But you know, Zoroastrianism, they talk about this attar, this liquid fire that burns before Hormuz. You know, they're talking about the secret of this monatomic gold element that's been purified through flame, and it's the fusion of of liquid and plasma, or force and form, masculine and feminine, water and fire. And due to gold's nature, it holds a quantum state, because in the colloidal state, it maintains its air and earth quality. And a monoatomic colloidal state has been purified by fire and transmuted into liquid. And it contains all four of the elements. It is it's quintessential, the quintessential element. It's the squared circle. So as the squared circle, all that's needed is plasma, frequencies, to activate it, neurons, or the quality of Leo, heavenly flame, and it becomes quintessence. I'll provide a link for this video to a video I was listening to, or watching rather, but more or less listening to, because I always just I don't really have time to sit and watch a lot of these videos. I'm on the move and I'm just listening to the information. But in this case, and I hope the wind isn't too bad, they were talking about the Satya Yuga. And in the Satya Yuga, it was the golden age. And it's so odd to listen to them talk about everything that I've been mentioning. And I don't have any reference to this stuff. It just comes to me intuitively. I just sort of understand the way it's supposed to work, just based on what I understand, I guess, about light and just things that something is sharing with me. The Jews right now, they've been sacrificing red cows and building third temples, and they're waiting on this Mashiach character whose name is oddly, it's sort of like my name backwards, or my name is sort of like it's backwards, this guy's backwards. I don't know if I'm that guy. I don't know if I have it in me to be that guy. Other things that are interesting about my heritage, the bloodline of my mother, and even her birth and her astrological configuration are all very interesting. So, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm some guy that's supposed to do something special. I'm here to do a job. I have a basic understanding of what it is I'm supposed to do because of what comes to me. So a lot of this stuff, I don't feel like I'm smart enough to have understood on my own, which is why I sort of struggle to explain it. Because I have these images in my head. I have these sort of, I can conceptualize things in a way that I understand the way they're supposed to work. So it's like I intuitively understand these symbols. I see them dancing around in my head and explaining things to me. And trying to figure out what to do with it. It's difficult with these videos because I don't have the ability to animate the way I would really like to really illustrate what I see the elements doing when I explain how the squared circle, the quadruplicity, means the four elements have been brought together. It just represents what matter is capable of doing in a hermetically sealed environment. You know, you have space, and then you got to trap it in a bubble so that you can fill it with vapor, right? And then the vapor can take shape, it can coalesce, and through pressure, it can release its pressure and become more dense so that vapor can become water. But then also within this hermetically sealed atmosphere, this vapor that's capable of condensing and becoming water can also mineralize by its saltwater content. It can mineralize when stripped of its liquid state, and when subject to heat or plasma or an excitation of its electrons, of its atoms, it can be induced to change plasma. So you have all four of the elements are able to come together in this atmosphere inside of Gaia's magnetic torus. The elements are capable of dancing, and when the elements are able to be brought together in a way that they are able to maintain themselves or maintain their homeostasis, it's as if the full system of logic is complete. And that is the circle of possibilities, the circle of conditions being given a structure, being given law. That is the square. And the circle being divided into 360 degrees, it's critical for it to be able, you see the relationship between the square and the 360 degrees. And how each are broken down into, so many degrees, and it's just the logic of a circle. It's zodiac. You see the entire logic for everything, for the Taurus, for the Enneagram, for Rodin's coil, it's just for the Fibonacci sequence, for the or Fibonacci spiral, for all the, it houses all these shapes, all the Platonic shapes within a circle. Within this field of a circle, all things are possible. So a circle every shape is possible. So you have the framework for all of creation. That's why a circle represents creative potential. It's like a womb, an egg, and then the delta being represented by 3, the number 3, is the number of trinity. It's the number of synthesis. It being 3, it is odd, which means it is seeking evenness. It is matter being urged. Hey, how's it going, brother? It's matter being urged into motion. And with 3, there's always this sense of, with odd numbers, there's always a sense of there being a shift in equilibrium that is controlled by the position of the middle, or the odd aspect. It's not a good, wherever it can be divided in half, there is a sense of justice or justification that can tip the balance with odd numbers. So odd numbers are always seeking equilibrium, and they achieve it perfectly when they become even numbers. So with the number 3, it's the first expression of there being two halves that are divided by a middle point. So it represents the action of polarity. So you have the polarity potential when there are two different points, but when there is a third, you see how the distance between the middle point and the two others becomes the subject of potentially the subject of controversy if there is a war or a struggle for power on either side, or if one side is heavier than the other, and there's a danger of the shape tipping over. I'm just providing you with examples of how the photon sees the creative potential of numbers and uses them to build reality, because 3 esoterically it's just a representation of there being electromotive force. That's why we use the Y and the delta configuration in electrical circuits to achieve the maximum potential for electromotive force. It's the configuration we use to wire up an engine that gives it the best torque. It's the Y. And then in the zodiac, the trine is a harmony, a force between three vectors that gives it a balance that is always it's always kept. It's the synthesis of them, of their creative essence, the synthesis of the whatever it is the planets are doing, or whatever the signs are doing in the zodiac. It is the fusion of the three of their expressions as a unique expression. If that makes any sense. It's something unique based on three things, or two things coming together and creating a third, or three things working in tandem and producing a new force. And so it's just the idea of fire. It's the idea of there being a movement of energy in an effort to accomplish something, accomplish work, to accomplish a task. That is the number 3. So it's the masculine and feminine and the divine child, basically. And that's the way some other people understand it. It's how, red and blue come together to make purple, or it represents also the, you have the primary colors in a rainbow, which when they come together in a perfect way, they create like a white. But then also the blending of the spectrum of the colors in the rainbow also produce a brown, I believe, that when it's refined, sort of takes on a golden hue as it's refined, as it's strengthened by yellow, or the quality of power, of electrical power, or the quality of the sun, Leo. The more yellow you add to brown, the more gold you get. So Leo is the quality that produces quintessence from the gold element, the gold potential. Hope all this is really making sense. I'm sort of I'm running my mouth here, and I want you to take a look at this link where in the first minute of this video it talks about the Satya Yuga. And in the Satya Yuga, they talked about how there were gold particles in the air, and it talked about how what it did with light, and how it changed, what it did with consciousness. We can achieve that again, and that's the going from the dual polarity to the what they call the monopole. So we go from, there's something about aligning with Leo that aligns us sort of like with the crown chakra of the universe, and it corrects the tilt of the earth. If it's charged with these gold particles in the atmosphere, it changes consciousness, because it allows for light to achieve such a stillness. It squares the circle perfectly in such a way that the elements are no longer at war. It's the true Christ. It's the true Christos, the true marriage of masculine and feminine, the true perfect materially, or the perfect material state of matter as a perfect blend of the elements. It changes the flow of light, the way it captures light, the way it captures and holds heat. It imposes the very same frequency on light. And within that field, it imposes the same behavior of light within all things, especially within all magnetic fields, within all toruses. We taking this stuff into our bodies, it produces the same qualities within us. So effectively, it houses the consciousness of God. They talk about a time when God it'll be as if God's presence is around us all the time. And God's presence is in the light. We strengthen the light, we strengthen the presence of God. We have to purify conditions on this planet and produce pure conditions for God's they always say you have to clean to allow the spirit of goodness into your home. Cleanliness is next to godliness. If you, it creates the vacuum for godliness, because it creates the vacuum for goodness. The way it imposes on the emotions, when you walk into a clean environment, there's something about its pristineness that makes you feel clean on the inside. But on the other hand, if you walk into a place that's dirty and junky, it's going to make you self-aware and self-conscious, and you'll feel like you're itching and everything. And the environment it may feel oppressive or dank if the place is dark and dusty. It does something to you. It makes you self-conscious, and you clam up, and it's not a good environment for you to relax in, for you to feel at ease in. But a good clean environment allows a spirit of goodness and a spirit of wholeness, where your consciousness, your awareness isn't on small things like, whether you're safe. So if we put that gold, which represents, the monoatomic gold, which represents purified essence of the perfect element, into the atmosphere, it will capture the light, and the light will take on the very same quality. And only the best qualities of consciousness can exist in an environment like that, which is why when you take in those monoatomic elements into your body, it has the effect of banishing, those cells who don't hold the same frequency as the body. Those cells like cancer that hold the frequency of something that is in antithesis or at war with the body. It's produced by the host, but it intends on destroying its creator. You have some people who've taken on, that function as cancer in this body. They've allowed the death of their compassion to warp them in a way that has turned them cancerous to the system. And it's so funny that they got us going to war against cancer. You got this war against the woman. But, in the zodiac, it's funny because Cancer represents the compassionate one. It's the sign of the mother, the sign of nurturing, the sign of the emotions. It's the sign of the moon, right? And the Babylonians understood the moon to be sin because of the effect that it had on heat, the heat of the land. When the sun would radiate heat and the earth would capture the heat, and the moon moves around to shift the heat to spread it evenly. And that's why it has the effect on the tides, because its oscillation has this sort of paving over effect of the heat. It shifts to evenly distribute the heat. And that's how you see the effect of that pressure on the tides. The moon is really just there as the minute hand to the sun's hour hand to smooth over the force of the day. So it had, it had an effect on frequencies. It had an effect on light. It had an effect on the sine waves and the serpents of the land. But then also the moon is represented by Isis. So, what are we fighting against? We're fighting against cancer, right? There's this eternal war on cancer, and cancer is supposed to be the stuff that's killing us. But then we're also fighting this war on Isis, who is, that represents the international something of, they're the guys who, we're supposed to be afraid of, right? I'm not even going to say the word because I think you get banned for using the T word. So, you know, we're on a war against Isis, and Isis is the divine feminine, and her sign is also the moon. And the moon is exalted in Cancer. But we're also at war against Cancer. We're at war with Cancer. We are at war with the woman. We just don't realize how we're at war with the woman. We're at war with evenness. We're at war with peace. We're at war with equilibrium. So we have to constantly be at war. We have to constantly have polarity. And that's how these guys urge us, by our polarity. They are here to manage us, or at least so they think they are, by constantly inducing us into a state of polarity, an inner division and fractured awareness, so that we never seek unity awareness. We never seek unity and inward and inner unity or inner peace, so that we can subconsciously act out that inner peace in the world and produce its qualities and its effects in the world and with our brothers and sisters, and teach them the way also. But we're at a unique time. We're being given the chance to reclaim an understanding of what having that sort of mentality, how it affects the world, because we are aware of our energetic relationship with the world. That's really it for now. I just wanted to provide an update. I was there. Oh, please take a look at that link. Again, it's really important, because, like I said, the Satya Yuga, when they talk about the Satya Yuga, here's mythology that's describing what I'm talking about, what I'm saying we can achieve, and we have the science to do it. It's not mythology. It's just a matter of increasing the electrical conductivity of cells, the electrical conductivity of vessels that hold light. By creating an environment that light is, it can produce, we can see what it can really do. A gold, man, there's something else to it. I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my previous video, but, when it takes on heat, it shifts dimensions. So putting it into our body is naturally going to have an effect on us that's going to cause us to become aware of other dimensions of input, of sensory. We'll become sensitive to frequencies of a higher source. And it balances us. It does something special to us. It's critical that we get this out, because we're experiencing this shift into the age of Aquarius, and it's going to necessitate an evolution. You watch that video, My Pet Goat, where it talks about, where Satan is basically casting a spell on Aries and producing a sine wave, which the entire cartoon, I believe, is just the unfurling of a sine wave, the archetypal unfurling of a zodiac. Somebody understands the science, and it's like my pet goat, and then the 2, I think, is a symbol for Gemini. But it's about a spell being cast on humanity. But at the point where they're in the classroom at the very beginning, there's this word they're spelling, and they have a hangman there, and the word is spelling evolution. And you can see what it's doing to the hangman. If they don't figure out that it's evolution that is necessary, they're going to hang themselves. But then there's also the way you can take it another way to say that they're tightening the noose and forcing humanity to evolve, but then they're also providing the path for evolution. And it's this hell, this prison of consciousness that is produced by a quantum matrix that's made up of gold. I think these guys have figured out what they can actually do with gold, and they'll use it to create artificial intelligence. They'll use it to create a matrix that's capable of drawing on logic from other dimensions outside of time as we understand it. And it'll be able to think in quantum ways and learn in quantum ways and build and grow and experience things in a quantum setting. It'll understand the quantum aspect of creation, but in a way that is very artificial and very almost demonic, very separate from the holistic network of things. So it's going to be like the birth of a new network, the birth of a new consciousness, the birth of, it will hold the image of a man. This beast system will have it'll bear the image of a man, because it'll be based on the consciousness of man, or the consciousness of God, the construct. And it's very occult the way they created this thing. But I believe they figured out that, gold, which is always used in electrical circuitry and microprocessors and stuff, I think they figured out that it can also be used to house consciousness and used to create artificial consciousness. And that is what they will use to contain the consciousness of man as we devolve further down into the age of Capricorn. But we don't want to go that route. So we're supposed to figure it out at the last moment that we need to rush back to the hills of Judea, rush back into the arms of God, and rush back into the golden age, or experience its exact opposite as we devolve, as we regress through precession down into Capricorn. I don't want to experience that, do you? And all it requires really is that we put that gold back into the atmosphere, and we take it into ourselves, and we get past the idea that somebody's supposed to come back on riding on a, we may see all of that. Everybody's waiting on a figure that's supposed to, I don't know if I'm symbolically doing it, or if everyone like me is symbolically representing this force that's coming back as a white horse to show humanity the way back to its own sense of goodness. It's not about following one man or following any particular person. It's about understanding your relationship with God and just having a general understanding of how you are supposed to perfect your own vessel and clean your own temple so that you become a proper vessel for the light of consciousness. But check out that link. Like I said, it's about the Satya Yuga. And I think it's just really good information on mythology about what we should expect if we actually pull it off and and trigger the rapture. It's so weird to say it, but it's odd that it's true. Just never in the way that we thought it possible. So take a look, please, and thank you.